Hey, Lions Nation! We're back with another exclusive video bringing you all the latest news about our beloved Detroit Lions. Before we get started, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you never miss anything about the team. Now, let's get into the news. The locker room had felt tense before, but never like this, never with the air thick enough to chew. Never with the lights flickering as if the wiring itself sensed the eruption brewing inside Amon-Ra St. Brown's chest. In this alternate Detroit, Ford Field's underbelly was a labyrinth of cold concrete and trembling shadows, a place that swallowed secrets whole and digested them slowly. But tonight, it spat one back out. Jameson Williams had said something, one sentence, a blade disguised as confidence, a phrase tossed into the air during a media session like a spark flicked toward a powder keg. Reporters laughed, some players chuckled, but others felt the earth tilt because they knew Amon-Ra. They knew the way fire clung to his bones, the way pride and fury intertwined inside him like serpents. And they knew that certain words didn't slide off him. They sank in, hooked deep, dragging storms to the surface. By the time he walked back through the locker room doors that evening, helmet tucked under his arm like a severed head, the building seemed to recoil. The air changed temperature. Conversations died mid-sentence. Even the hum of the overhead lights quieted, dimming to a faint pulse as though afraid to draw his attention. Amon-Ra didn't slam anything. He didn't shout. No, his silence was louder than any explosion. A silence thick enough to make grown men shift their weight and avert their eyes. He walked past his locker, breathing through clenched teeth, his footsteps the only sounds low, deliberate, rhythmic in a way that suggested this was not anger born minutes ago, but something ancient stirring awake. Teammates approached cautiously, their expressions a blur of concern and curiosity. But when Amon-Ra finally spoke, his voice was low, almost gentle, like the calm before a tornado touches down and rips entire towns from the earth. He said what he said. He muttered, the words sliding out like venom, and he said it about me. Helmets rattled on, their hooks, pads shifted. Somewhere deep inside the bowels of the facility, a pipe groaned as though the building itself felt the pressure. Rumors had been growing all day that Jameson had implied he was the new alpha, the future, the spark the offense truly needed, that perhaps Amon-Ra's reign had peaked, that maybe there was a changing of the guard, the kind of comment that in any other city would be shrugged off, but not here, not with him. Amon-Ra stood in the center of the room, shoulders rising and falling with slow, volcanic breaths, eyes glowing with that same predatory burn he carried on the field. You don't poke a lion, someone whispered from the back, but the whisper reached Amon-Ra like an invitation. His head snapped upward, and for a moment it looked as though he might tear the entire locker room apart brick by brick. Instead, he closed his eyes and exhaled, but the exhale wasn't calming. It vibrated with something feral. He turned sharply and began pacing, boots grinding into the floor, each step exuding the controlled violence of a man trying just barely to hold back a monster made of pride, rage, and the relentless need to prove he was carved from something no teammate could ever outshine. The lights flickered again, the atmosphere shifted again, and deep in the corner, Jameson Williams entered, unaware that his words had mutated into a storm waiting to swallow him whole. Before we move on, take a second to drop a like and subscribe. That way, you'll stay up to date with every exclusive Lions update, and you'll even have a chance to win an official Detroit Lions jersey. Let's keep going. Jameson didn't realize the room had changed until his foot crossed the threshold, and the temperature dropped several degrees. Conversations didn't resume. They collapsed into a vacuum. Every eye snapped toward him, wide, gleaming, betraying the panic the players tried to hide. Even the lockers, cold steel monoliths lining the walls, seemed to lean inward, watching. Jameson paused, blinking as the eerie quiet sank into his skin. What's going on? He asked, but his voice cracked ever so slightly, and then Amon-Ra turned, slowly, painfully slowly, like a great beast lifting its head from deep slumber. Recognizing the scent that had awakened it, their eyes met, and electricity surged through the room. Raw, dangerous, unstable. Not the kind that powers buildings, the kind that starts fires, the kind that kills. The air between them tightened into a wire pulled to the edge of snapping. Amon-Ra stepped forward once, and it felt like the world shifted beneath his foot. Another step, and the shadows seemed to crawl out of the corners, gathering around him like soldiers awaiting orders. Jameson's throat bobbed. His eyes darted toward his teammates, but nobody moved, nobody interfered, because this wasn't about rivalry anymore. This was the ritual of kings, the ancient dance of dominance performed long before football ever existed. Say it again, Amon-Ra murmured, voice low, dark, vibrating with barely restrained violence. Jameson swallowed hard. Man, I didn't, but Amon-Ra cut him off with a single raised hand, fingers curled like claws. Say it again. Jameson took a step back, and the tension snapped like a whip. Cracks of invisible energy, making helmets rattle. Amon-Ra's veins pulsed beneath his skin, each beat pounding with fury too massive to contain. He wasn't shouting, but the quiet was more terrifying than any scream. You think this is handed to you? He asked, voice tightening into a snarl. You think one sentence puts you above me? His chest rose with a breath that sounded like a growl ripped from the throat of something monstrous. I built this place, he hissed. I bled in it. I broke myself in it. I made this locker room roar. Jameson tried again. Amon-Ra. You're twisting, but he didn't finish. Amon-Ra took one final step close enough that their breaths collided and the room's light surged, popping loudly as several bulbs burst overhead in a spray of sparks. Players flinched but didn't look away. Amon-Ra leaned in, voice now a whisper sharp enough to cut skin. You don't get to say my name like it's yours to replace. Jameson clenched his jaw, finally allowing defiance to surface in his eyes. Then prove it, he said. A slow, dangerous smile curled across Amon-Ra's lips, the kind a predator makes when prey stops running. Oh, I will, he replied. The two stood inches apart, the air scorching between them, the tension primal enough to crack bone. The storm that had been building all day finally took form, breathing through Amon-Ra's rage, rising through Jameson's stubborn fire, electrifying the room until the walls themselves seemed to tremble. This wasn't about roots. This wasn't about targets. It wasn't about headlines, depth charts, or locker room politics. This was about dominance, about blood, about the ancient truth that only one lion leads the pride. And as the room held its breath, watching the stars ignite into something dangerous and magnificent, every man understood the same chilling reality. The Detroit Lions were no longer preparing for a season. They were preparing for a war. We bring you the latest Lions news every single day, so make sure you're subscribed. Hit that like button and turn on notifications so you don't miss a thing. And of course, drop a comment below with your thoughts on today's news. Your voice makes a difference for Lions Nation. See you in the next video.